Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Mitch Carson. He is an international speaker and author. Welcome to the show, Mitch.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll be talking about mastering media exposure for business growth. But before we come to this, let us understand a bit about your journey, Mitch. Such a, you know, a lot of experience, 200 live events, 63 countries, spoken in, on stage in 63 countries, produced over 2,000 live events in 19 countries. That's a lot of things to learn from. So we would like to understand a bit about your journey. From there, we can learn a lot of things.
Well, it started out uh, as a very introverted person. So when people say anything is possible, I believe it today because where I started out on this journey, Kaj, was very shy, introverted. The idea of speaking in front of a crowd of people made me immediately feel nauseous, and the result was not good. And I overcame it. I had great fear of public speaking. I think worldwide, it's the number one fear of people, more than drowning or burning in a building. And I know that that was true for me. But my perfect definition of fear is face everything and rise. So I faced it. I didn't like not being good at it because I saw what speaking in front of a group of people had done for other people, and I wanted it for me. And that has been the greatest move that I made, to push through that fear, because much of success is limited by our own thinking. It's not necessarily the conditions of others. It's what has gone on in our own head, which allows us to either succeed or fail. And once I started speaking, and that was due to some life events that changed, I was sort of gently pushed into the arena to share my storage, my experience, strength, and hope after losing both of my parents when I was 22 years old. And it was a life-changing event for me. They died 5 weeks apart. I then went through a deep, dark depression and got myself out of it, and have been fortunate to thrive since then. And I'm able to share that story with others. And I felt it was my duty to share life with other people and to pay it forward. And speaking has given me a platform to share it on a larger scale than one-to-one. As you probably know, you're doing one-to-many. You're living exactly what I preach. You're practicing what I preach, Kaj. You're talking, addressing all these great ideas from the multiple experts that you bring on your show to showcase how they can help people on a one-to-many scale. And the power of speaking has been life-changing for me. The only thing that I would say would be second as a major move is when I decided to write a book. And the best way to then market your book, get your book out there into the hands of people who want to read it, consume it, and then want more of you, is through media. That leads me to the piece about media, where I have found the power of television, the power of podcasts, such as the one I'm on here today, the power of being on radio shows, the power of print, the power of online publication, the power of being elevated because you're an author, the power of being a guest on multiple podcasts, power of being a podcast host. All of that matters. It's all media in different channels, which has given us the ability to be seen omnipresently, where you are out there in various elements. Even though I live in America, I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada today, and your audience is largely in India. There is a great possibility that if it doesn't happen today, later it will then be seen and heard in my market. because there are a lot of Indian Americans who still have a great connection to their home country. And the same holds true here. If you're covered in the media here, it will resonate and be ping pong balled all the way to Delhi. It might even go to Calcutta, who knows, wherever. And it's something that is miraculous today because we are in a world market.
Absolutely, absolutely, Mitch, and this is the power of media. And for your information, this show is not going just in India, but it's a global show. So, in fact, a lot of audience is also from the US, and you'll be surprised that on YouTube last month, 65% of my audience was from the US. So India came number two. But if you look at the podcasts, then in that India is number one, and the US, and then other countries keep on. So on different channels. So this is the power of media on different channels, different mediums. It will be different version, but it is actually reaching a lot of people across the globe, and that is where. So I want to understand. You talk about big media, Mitch. What should people understand? What big media is all about? Otherwise, people just dream of the big names. They think that as big media, and then they leave out the other opportunities which they may think, oh, these are small opportunities. I should only target as think big, go for big media, and you lose all the opportunities in between.
Totally agree with you. And I'll tell a little story. Not too far from India, even though I'm going to mention this because Americans will be listening as well,
Right.
is United Arab Emirates, Dubai.
Right.
And over there, I was training a group of speakers. I had 38 people that came to my Speak in Dubai event. And then we went on to go speak in Bahrain. We also did an event in Oman. We did an event in Egypt, all throughout the Middle East. We sought media from Al Jazeera. We also got covered by CNBC Arabia. We also were in talks with, didn't happen, but with we were also in the KAJ Times newspaper. And my view is all media is good media. All media is good media. What you're doing is a great vehicle to, I will never say no to a podcast, no matter how big or small. I understand that you plant seeds constantly in the media world. It can happen through print. I'm going to ask you, if I may, I know you're the host, but I'll ask you a question. Guys,
Of course.
would you say no to an interview on a radio show?
No, why should I? Means it's a good opportunity that gives me an opportunity to be an expert, share my views. Here I am, uh, you know, using others' views and sharing it with the world. There, if somebody calls me, then it will be for my views, and every that opportunity is very, very, honorable opportunity and very, very welcome.
Right. And you wouldn't say no to it because you're smart. You understand the power of exposure. It's one to many. And a lot of times but here's another statistic. Small markets have greater viewership per person and better consumption than if you have a huge television network that you're on. Yes, you'll talk to more people, but the loyalty isn't the same as it is with a smaller market. So don't ignore the power of podcasts, the power of radio shows, the power of print, because it's an aging group that reads print, which I would also call big media. I would reference it because it caters to an older demographic of people. Here's the advantage of older people. They have more money than younger people. They have more money. And let's face it, the metric is who's buying your products and services and connects with your message. Let's not
Right.
ignore all these other categories. I mean, you can certainly cater to the 19-year-old in your message if you want to talk about games and, anime and all these things. But who's got the money? Their parents. They've got to buy in. And sometimes you have to use a back door to market to the intended market of people.
Right. Right, Mitch. Now, for a lot of speakers who are, trying to get a foothold into this speaking thing, and they are looking at options whenever people they get sometimes free opportunities, sometimes paid opportunities, wherever they get a chance to speak, and this market people are getting much more aware of. But one thing is that even if you get a couple of opportunities, Mitch, they do not know how to capitalize on it. How did you capitalize on it? Did the media start coming to you just because you spoke on a couple of stages? How much patience played a role? How much how should one plan their strategy in today's time when they are looking at becoming professional speakers and they have just got a few opportunities for themselves?
Well, yeah, it's like, well, the hard part is starting, and the hard part, the harder part is then getting your first stage.
Right.
And you have to be prepared in order to get your first stage. And sometimes, well, let me just say this. For a speaker who is learning how to speak and goes to an organization like a Toastmasters, which is worldwide the largest organization, it's been around the longest, and there are many others that can teach people how to speak and overcome their fear of speaking, get out there. Then there's the next category of people who want to leverage that to gain promotions at work, and the statistics support you'll make 20% more money if you're able to speak to a group of people than those that don't, because there is that barrier. Third level would be people who want to make money as a speaker and go out and get compensated for sharing their ideas, their methods, their strategies. To get to the fourth level of being a full-time professional speaker, you need several arrows in your quiver, if you will, Raj. Okay,
Right.
you need, number one, you got to have a book. Number
Okay.
two, you got to have footage behind you proving that you are an expert in your category. You've got to have media behind you with multiple podcasts that you've been interviewed on to make your expertise irrefutably certain. Lock tight, all dressed up, all the buttons on your jacket are buttoned up. You have the appropriate badges of written one book, multiple books, a series of books. You have been on television in not just one station, but multiple stations. You've been on radio shows, not one, but multiple radio shows. You have been on podcasts around the world. You're a sought after expert. And when they do a background check on you to look and see if you've done it, it's all there. You're packaged. The most mediocre speakers with great packaging will make more money than exceptional speakers with no packaging. Does that make sense?
Yes, indeed. Indeed, Mitch. So what is this packaging all about? Means you put a lot of these things, or is it more than that?
It can be, it's more. You also today, because let's say 10 years ago, although podcasting existed, it's nothing like it is today. Today, it's everywhere. It's omnipresent. But the market wasn't receiving it years ago. But you've got to have podcasting. You've got to be also well positioned. I would say number one and two would be LinkedIn for social media for a speaker or an expert. And number two would be YouTube. Got to have a presence on both. And I don't mean just slapping up one video. You got to put up much and have content up there. Maybe based on your demographic, depending on who your target market is. You're on Instagram. You might be TikTok. That's, I think it's expanded beyond young girls shaking and dancing. And TikTok is to be taken seriously for a certain group of people, depending on who you target. But I think you have to embrace all of it. And your media needs to be consumed by the market that can give you money. And your market is defined as a starving crowd with the capacity to pay. So starving crowd with money. And if they
Right,
want information, they're willing to pay for it.
right, right, Mitch. In today's time, you said talked about starving crowd which is willing to pay for what you can speak to them. So in today's time, a lot of this expertise is already available in the form of either videos, book, or the knowledge it is. So how and a lot of things can be created by artificial intelligence, even a
Yes.
joke, and you
Yeah.
can just people will think it's not your joke. So how do you create an originality around you? expertise around you, and then go to the audience who is ready to pay for you. How do you do that? Earlier it used to be it used, these things were not there, but today you are competing with competitors, you are competing with AI, you are competing with almost everything in terms of establishing your expertise, authenticity, and also making those people worthwhile to take out money to listen to you.
I think you have to be one step ahead of the competition. And to be the number one person in your niche requires discipline, focus, and the willingness to do what it takes. And doing what it takes is, I don't know how often you produce your show. You're doing this, though. I think you have huge numbers from what I recall reading about you. You do this on a regular basis. And this is how you separate yourself from anybody, because when you create enough separation from your competition, most will give up. Because if you've already written several books and you've been on several TV shows, you've hosted X number, I don't know, your number was huge. I think I read like 800 shows, something outrageous. If you've created all that, and if somebody is after the same market that you're after, and you've done all the heavy lifting already, they're going to say, too much work, I'm going in a different direction. And if you've created that kind of distance between yourself and your closest competitor, keep doing it, because you'll widen the gap. And you want to own your niche, at least being number one or possibly two in your category, because personality drives your audience. My personality is different than yours. It's different than Susie's. It's different than, Bill's. And each person has the opportunity to have his own tribe of followers, people that resonate with his message. Not everybody's going to like me. Not everybody's going to like you. It's a fact. But the people that do, we have to feed them. We have to unhook, detach our umbilical cord and feed them. They're looking for sustenance, guidance, direction. There are a lot of people who are followers, very few leaders. Be the leader. Do what leaders do. Create content, create a mission, create a irrefutable position of power and strength by ticking the right boxes of having been interviewed on media, have a book, get out there, speak on your topic one to many. You position yourself differently than people that do nothing. Doing something is better than nothing. And then you can measure and evaluate after you've done something, and then go in the direction which yields you the best results.
Right. Well explained, Mitch. Now, a lot of people focus on, being an expert in one's niche. Perfectly understood. But sometimes that niche can also constrain you or confine you to a certain geography. How did you spread yourself so wisely, so widely, in terms of speaking in stages on stages in 63 countries and producing 2000 live events in 19 countries? How did you use your niche and take it away, which was also useful in many other stages in many countries, rather than just confining it to one geographical area?
Here is my tip, and that's a fantastic question, a smart question you've asked. The way I would present and sell and discuss in the US is going to change a little bit if I go to Canada. Not a lot, it's North America. If I hop on an airplane and I fly all the way to Delhi, I'm going to alter my message a lot, because it's a completely different culture. English speaking, the largest English speaking country in the world, I think India is.
Right.
But I'm also going to change the testimonials that I always integrate into my presentations to match the market. I might include some Caucasian people in my testimonials or in my stories, my anecdotes, my case studies, but I'm going to twist it and include KAJ. I'm going to include Mr. Patel. I'm going to include other Indian people And I'm also not going to include the enemies of India, and I'm not going to get into the politics, but I'm going to be completely aware and sensitive to my environment. Let me give you an example of one of my biggest blunders, big mistake I made. Can I share that, Koch?
Right, please.
Okay, I was speaking in Indonesia,
Right,
at an event, and I was there, and that is a largely a Muslim country. Okay,
right,
already I'm different because I'm white, I'm American, and I'm in Jakarta, Indonesia. And there were about 300 people in the audience. And I forgot what I was presenting or selling, but in order to connect with the audience, I ask questions in order to make sure I get heads that start bobbing. And that's my way of connecting them. And I
right,
also shake the hands of men. Now, I knew enough about Islamic culture that I couldn't go and shake the hands of women.
right,
A lot of Americans wouldn't know that unless they've traveled and been schooled on culture and protocol. And I could touch men or shake their hands in the audience, and that's my way of connecting. I knew not to touch the women. But I asked a very dumb question, and I realized, oh my gosh, did I just make a big mistake? Now, let me start with a statistic. In the U.S., more than 60% of the population has been divorced at least once. And I
right.
made a joke in that country. I said, okay, I don't remember the application. I remember the question, and it was a humorous, self-effacing comment. I said, I've been divorced, and I learned from my mistakes. I had married my lawyer, and boy, was I smart to pick one who knew how to divorce me. It was my joke. And I said, by show of hands, how many of you have been divorced and understand what I'm sharing? Okay,
Right,
you're laughing. You can appreciate the stupidity of the question. Now, that question would have been totally appropriate and would have garnered response of laughter in my home country. It would have worked in Australia. It would have worked in the UK. And it certainly had worked in the US. But in Jakarta, Indonesia, where the entire room was Islamic practitioners or believers, it had no hands that went up. Not one, Kaj. AJ, I wanted to crawl underneath the table and die at that moment. The energy drained out of the room. I didn't take into account culture. And that's a long-winded answer to your question of how do you connect with all these different. Now, presentation style has got to be adapted to the local market, which I think is the key lesson in teaching here. The second is you have to understand culture, and I made a mistake. I will never do that again. You know, you got to understand that, and you could have heard a pin drop. 300 people, not one hand went up, and they just stared at me. And that, a couple men scratched their beards and did this, and I thought, oh my gosh, did I just put my big American foot in my mouth?
Right, Mitch. So, how did you handle this situation? Means this, I can understand, and this can happen unknowingly. You cannot know about everything in the world, and a lot of people can make honest, un, different understanding of different culture. Then, how do you get out of that situation? It's not. It's. I wouldn't call it a it's a different sort of an understanding, and that is where the cultural nuance comes in. How do you then salvage the situation, if I may use that word? How did you do it for yourself?
I said, oops, I guess I made a mistake. I didn't take into account that I'm not in my home country. And I popped my head like this. I said, excuse me, I'm an American, and I have a big, and I didn't think that clearly. I didn't think through that clearly. I apologize. I'm human. I made a mistake. And I popped my head like this. And then I simply pivoted and moved on. Several people smiled when I said that. When I said I'm American and I made a big blunder. It was self-effacing humor. I didn't call myself an idiot or didn't go to that extreme. I just said I made a blunder. Oops. I made a little bit of fun of myself at that moment and then quickly pivoted and did not discuss it again. Why pick a scab? I already created a problem. I addressed it quickly when I realized that I had messed up. And then I continued with my presentation. You
Wonderful.
have to
So
continue.
one right. So one has to just deal with that situation, move on, and move. And it can happen on any different occasion or different situation or factual sort of a thing. The world is moving at a very fast pace, and you just may not be aware about it. It's very difficult to be aware about all the things. Be that as it may, let's learn a bit about your book. When did you write your book? Tell us a bit about your book. What did you put into, and do you keep on adding to the knowledge in that book, or you are looking at writing some more books?
I'm about to release another in the next couple weeks on the public speaking industry and what the lessons I've learned in that. The first book I wrote was called Silent Salesman, the first published book, and it was published by John Wiley and Sons, a big business book publisher here in the US with worldwide reach. It then got translated into German, and that came out in the market in 2008. I have not revisited that topic, and I use that as my lever to legitimize myself, credentialize myself in the marketplace because it has reviews. It was on the bookshelf in the bookstores. It's been in libraries. And I use it and I showed that it was also published and it was translated into German. Subsequently, I've written many books which never published because I use them as bonuses to programs that I sold. And books have been a go-to tool for me as a speaker for decades. I have used them, self-published. Now is a faster, easier route to get content out and to create my presence. And then I can change and shift quickly. When you go through a traditional publisher, it takes time. There's a lot of lag between writing it and then when the market's ready to receive it. Because if you were to write a book on Chat GPT today with the traditional publisher, where it is by the time it reaches the bookshelves or it's uploaded through the traditional publishing routes, the world has changed. Like you said, it is so fast today. It's changing so quickly. Self-publishing, in my opinion, and I'm a published author with the legitimate publishing house. We used to snub our nose at people that self-published. It is the way to go today. It's faster, more efficient, and you put more money in your pockets.
Absolutely. Well explained. Again, this part that, for some things, even for a published author, self-publishing is the way to go because of the type of content that you are dealing with. There is much to learn from you, Mitch, and I'm sure a lot of people would like to learn more from you, directly from you, more about you, about your book, upcoming book. So, what's the best way for them to do so?
Well, my personal website is mitchcarson.com. They can certainly reach out there and I'll show the book when it comes out, there. If they ever want to get on media in the United States, they can set up an appointment with getinterviewedguaranteed.com/meet with Mitch. That's an option as well. If they're looking to get media for their book, I can assist them in the Las Vegas market and many other places in the US. They can also do interviews remotely. And they can reach me at getinterviewedguaranteed.com/meet with Mitch.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.